Hey there, welcome to the channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I make my own DIY hair moisturizer. This is a hibiscus and rosemary hair moisturizer. It is moisturizing and nourishing for the hair. It's also light, it has an amazing color, and it smells delightful. Want to see how I make this hibiscus and rosemary hair moisturizer? Well, keep watching. So let's go ahead and start with our first ingredient. So the first ingredient that I'm going to be using is distilled water. So if you have made an emulsion before, then you know that distilled water normally makes up a large percentage of the recipe. So this is actually 80.2 grams of distilled water. So now that I have my distilled water, the next ingredient I'm going to go ahead and add is my glycerin. So glycerin is a humectant and it's going to draw moisture to our hair. So I'm adding in 5.7 grams of glycerin. And now I'm just going to stir my ingredients together. Just as an FYI, if you haven't already, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you're notified whenever I create a new video. So the next ingredient that I'm going to include is hibiscus powder. So I have my hibiscus powder here. I have already measured it out. So I'm just going to go ahead and add it into my water and my glycerin mixture. And this is almost like creating a hibiscus tea. So I'm just going to add that in and go ahead and stir it in. So for my hibiscus, this is 1.1 gram of hibiscus. Now, hibiscus is an excellent additive to add to your hair moisturizers because it contains a ton of minerals and it also helps to nourish and strengthen the hair. It's also great with preventing dandruff. And it also can strengthen the hair at the follicle, at the root follicle. And this, of course, is going to help prevent breakage as well as possibly preventing hair loss. So now that I've stirred this in, what I'm going to do now is sit it on the stove. And so when I said it's similar to making a tea, that means that I'm basically going to now warm this up to help the powder infuse into the distilled water and the glycerin. So I'm going to do that now, and then I can move on to my next ingredients. So the next ingredient that I'm going to be using is kapuasu butter. So kapuasu butter is an excellent butter to use in hair moisturizers. It easily absorbs into the hair. It makes the hair softer. It makes the hair more elastic, which certainly will prevent breaking. And it's just a very emollient butter that I really, really like using. So I'm going to go ahead and measure out my kapuasu butter now. I'm just tarring my scale, and for the kapuasu butter I'm going to be using 11.3 grams. So I'm just going to measure that out now. And now I have my 11.3 grams of kapuasu butter. Now we can move on to the next ingredient. So this next ingredient that I'm going to be measuring out is babasu oil. So I'm just tearing my scale, and then this is my babasu oil. So babasu oil is very similar to coconut oil. So at room temperature, babasu oil is most likely going to be pretty liquidy. However, if it gets to be very, very cold, babasu oil will turn into a solid. So for this particular moisturizer, I'm going to go ahead and measure out 2.2 grams of babasu oil. So now that I have my 2.2 grams of babasu oil, and you can see that it's sort of a semi-solid, but this is very moisturizing for the hair, and I also use it in a lot of my other DIY skincare recipes. So let's move on to the next ingredient. So I have Olivum 1000 as my next ingredient, and it comes in these little flakes. So this is my emulsifier, and this is going to help my oil and my water emulsify and come together. And also this will help my product not come apart when it's just sitting waiting to be used. So now I'm going to go ahead and measure out 5.6 grams of Olivum 1000. And again, this is 5.6 grams of these little Olivum flakes. So now I'm going to go ahead and measure out my next ingredient, which is going to be avocado oil. So avocado oil is actually a very rich oil, and if you have hair that is on the finer side, then avocado oil may not be the oil for you. You may want to use a lighter oil. And what I'm going to do is measure out 2.2 grams of avocado oil. So now that I have my avocado oil, in addition to that oil, I'm going to measure out some olive oil. I'm going to be measuring out 2.2 grams of olive oil. So now I can move on to my next step. So now you can see that I have the majority of my ingredients. This is my olive oil and my avocado oil mixture. And now I'm going to include my babasu oil into my olive oil mixture. I'm also going to include my kapawasu butter. And last but not least, I'm going to include my Olivum 1000. So let's move on to the next step. So for this next step, I'm going to go ahead and prepare my bowl for straining. So I have my cheesecloth and I have it here in my bowl. So this is my hibiscus water and glycerin mixture. And I'm just going to stir this just a moment. And now I'm just going to take my mixture and pour it onto my cheesecloth to strain out any larger particles that I do not want in my hair moisturizer. And now I have my oil mixture, so I'm going to go ahead and pour it over into my water and hibiscus mixture. And while I'm doing that, I'm also going to go ahead and start stirring. And now I'm going to take my immersion blender and just give it a couple of pulses. And this is to mix in my mixture, my oil and my water really well. And you can see it's starting to turn into a moisturizer. So I'm just going to let this sit and cool down for just a moment before I add in my other ingredients. So actually I'm going to let it cool down for several minutes, probably like 10-15 minutes until it gets down to an optimal temperature. So as you can see, my mixture is emulsified and it looks like a cream or hair moisturizer. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and add in some additional ingredients. So here I have my vitamin E that I'm going to add in. And I'm also going to add in my fragrance oil, which is here. And now I'm going to just mix these up before I move on to the next ingredient. So now that I have these ingredients, I have just one more ingredient, and that is my preservative. So I'm going to go ahead and pour a little bit in and then mix this in. And I just want to make sure that the sides, everything that's on the side is also mixed in. So I'm just going to stir that up. And now I'm going to go ahead and mix in the rest of my preservative. And now I can move on to my next step. So I have my little jar here, and I made about 113 grams of the hair moisturizer. So now I'm just going to go ahead and fill my jar. And as you can see, I now have my jar of moisturizer. Again, this is about 113 grams. And now I'm just going to go ahead and use it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Also, products and ingredients that I used in this video can be found in the description box below. Over on my website at beautyrobe.com, there are lots of free recipes and ingredients, so don't forget to check it out. And guys, I will see you in the next video. Bye!